Excellent. Welcome to Regional Manager Update, the information that we missed on Sunday due to Elsa obviously not being very happy with people and snowing everyone in. But I'm glad everyone got home safely, which is always helpful. So this evening we're just going to go through a few bits and pieces, and I do have Kirsty and Nathan here as well that are going to put some input also, which would be nice. Oh, Peter's just joined us. Fantastic. Basically, what we are going to cover are the following this evening: swimming, quads, driving for work, and then we'll have a little Q&A at the end. Peter, just double check that you can hear me. If you can put it in the chat box down on your right hand side of your screen to say hey or whatever, that you can hear me, that would be brilliant. Okay, moving on. So we have swimming. Let's cover the first part of swimming. So swimming we have on camp is one of the most fun activities, but also one of the most dangerous activities. Fortunately, we have put in place some good, strong, robust safety measures, which all encompasses in one document, and that is the Pool Safety Operating Procedure, or the PSOP. And after this session, I'm going to send you a copy of a PSOP, just so you can have a little look through it, because you will be getting very familiar with it over Easter and summer. So basically what the PSOP consists of is two documents. That is one which is the NOP, the Normal Operating Plan, outlining the day-to-day running of the building, pool, and what the lifeguards do and how that operates. There's also the ratios, staffing, and all of that jazz. And then we have the EAP, which is the Emergency Action Plan. This is a document outlining everything from system failure, lighting failures, blue discoloration of the swimming pool, all sorts of different things. And on the next page, it does go into the details of a normal operating procedure. As you can see, there's more than what I said originally, but here's just a few, but not an exhausted list, what could be found in a normal operating procedure. And then, like I said, there's an EAP, the Emergency Action Plan, and it goes into more details here, from overcrowding to, like I said, structural or lighting failure, emissions of toxic gas. This is obviously if the chemicals spill over in the plant room, and then serious injuries to bather. And then obviously the worst case scenario, a casualty in the water. But it also talks about water clarity, which happens quite a lot in our outdoor pools. Essentially, the rule is if you cannot see the striped lines on the bottom of the pool clearly, or they're murky ever so slightly, then we need to seek advice. And that's where you'll call a member in the team, just to discuss the reasons why you're going to shut the pool, and then we can obviously speak to the host venue contact, who can then look at sorting out the chemicals, and then we can have like some sort of clarity on when and how we're going to get the pool back into action for the children to enjoy their swimming. Indoor pools doesn't normally happen just because it doesn't have the outdoor elements. The worst thing for swim pools, and especially chlorine pools, for those of you who don't know, there's two types of pools. There's a chlorine pool and a bromine pool. Most pools we operate are chlorine, but bromine pool we have a handful of. But a chlorine pool, an outdoor pool, is usually a chlorine pool, but also they react quite well to sap and tree bark. So basically falling leaves into the pool can turn it a lovely colour very quickly. I just want to quickly go into floats and equipment, because there's an often question that comes to me. It's like, oh, how many floats, how many bits of equipment? So the rule is the big floats, the island floats that we call, it's a 1-to-4 ratio. That's one float to 4 children. And then the personnel floats are obviously 1 per child. And I just want to put some context in that. I want to show you a quick video of the reasons why we say that, just because it puts in the back of your mind a reason why. So if you just give me a second to find that video. And then what I'm going to do is to share it with you now. There is no sound, but I'm going to talk over it. So there's children playing on the float. And as you can see, they're having a great time, flipping each other up and everything like that, which we don't allow to do. But they're having a good time, causing lots of turbulence. But then what happens, they'll disperse. And then if we look at the bottom of the pool, there is, obviously in this case, is a mannequin, but that could be a child. And this is why we limit the amount of float in an area, because they're so hard to see what's on the bottom of the pool. And it's a lifeguard's nightmare when people bring out the big floats out to play with. So I just wanted to show you that video because it's important to understand the safety implications of having big float. By all means use them, but let's use them within the risk assessment, a 1:4 ratio. Okay, let's go back. Excuse me. Let's go back and moving on now. A little bit more context to why we have lifeguards, because people have often asked, oh, we have swimming, we do this, and other people do this. And at Super Camps, we like to be the best, not because we offer the best activities, but we are the best in regards to safety and our procedure. And the reason is, if it's an unprogrammed swimming session, open to general public and operate inflatable sessions or senior sessions, which we come under. Okay, we come under the unprogrammed thing. We can have a normal session or a normal pool, and like if you go to a leisure centre, could have anywhere up to 30, 40 people in the pool to one lifeguard. A programmed session is obviously a swim lesson, aqua aerobics, swimming coaching or training, and lifeguard training. So something with a little bit less elements to like go wrong, I suppose. And that means that you don't need a lifeguard, and you can just use a swim teacher who's got a 2-day kind of like a rescue award that could do that. So we take basically the swim lesson ratio, couple it with an actual lifeguard of an unprogrammed lesson who's had 5.5 days training, bring it together, and the maximum we have in a pool at one time is a 1:20 ratio, and that's for our older ones. And as you see in the book on the ratio page, for the early years it's a 1:12, and then the mid-range, the 6 to 7s, is a 1:15, and then it goes to 1:20 for the older ones. But then there's caveats to that. There's also about swimming ability, disabilities, that kind of thing, and that all comes to play within the swimming safety procedure. But I just want to give you a bit of context of what program and unprogrammed sessions mean and how that relates to the health and safety of a swimming pool. So moving on to scanning. So scanning is a method that lifeguards use when they are poolside. There's different ways of doing this. Especially if you know exactly how many children are in the pool, you can just do count of heads, go back, count of heads, and keep on doing that left and right. That prevents boredom and stuff like that. But if it's a busy pool, lifeguards employ the most common technique is what we call the 10-20 scan system. So basically what this is, you have an area or a zone, as it's known, to scan within a pool. You take 10 seconds to scan that zone. So you go from left to right or right to left, up, down, whatever pattern you wish, as long as you cover the top of the pool, the middle of the pool, i.e. in the water, and the bottom of the pool within that 10 seconds and within your zone, then that's absolutely fine. And it's not rushing, it's a nice slow pace that a lifeguard would be using on that. And then the 20 seconds part is basically it takes them 20 seconds to respond and get to the casualty. So that's what we call a 10-20 scanning system. It's the most common. And when you speak to a lifeguard and they say, oh, I'm 10-20 scanning, you know what they mean by this. So the lifeguard's on the side, does 10 seconds of scanning, backwards and forth, left to right, 10 seconds. Then when he gets to right, he goes right to left, 10 seconds. And this is the reason why we say bigger pools require more lifeguards, is because the lifeguards need more time to scan the whole pool. So therefore we break up each pool, the bigger pools, into 2 zones. Lifeguard 1 has zone 1, lifeguard 2 has zone 2, and they stand retrospectively on that particular area. And I just want to go back to the point I made about lifeguards using the whole of the pool, so the top, the middle and the bottom. So this is called, the lifeguard needs to be in a good vantage point, and sitting on a chair at the side of the pool isn't a good vantage point unless the pool is the size of a bar. The only one I can think of in our portfolio is that big, and you can get away with sitting on the side of on a chair. This is a small school chair at the side of the pool, would be the Croft. All other pools, you would need the lifeguard needs to be stood up, looking, so he has the angle to be able to look and see, and obviously avoid any blind spots. If the pool has a lifeguard chair, which is a chair upon a ladder almost, it's quite high up, they may wish to use that, but off the top of my head I can't think of any swimming pools within our portfolio that has that facility. And to be honest, at Super Camps we quite like the lifeguards to be quite interactive, not running the session, but if someone asks them a quick question they can obviously answer, but still have their eyes on the pool at the same time. It's a little bit impersonal sometimes when the lifeguard's at the top, and also for me it promotes boredom, and then when it has complacency follows on that. So as long as the lifeguard's standing up poolside, it's all fine. But like I said, no lifeguard should be sat down on a chair, a school chair that is, while they're at poolside on duty. Cool. That's a little bit on swimming. And obviously I'm going to send you the book and ask any questions. For those of you who have not done a swim sign-off before, I will give you a call and go over it a little bit more detail, just so you know 100% comfortable. And within the swim sign-off, you must always call Dom or myself to sign it off, or else the people, if you can't get a hold of either of us, then the swim pool, you have to keep on trying until we give all the all clear. Dom and I have been to all the pools between us, so we know the hazards and the different nuances between the pools, so we'll be able to give you some advice on that, and also gives a double check in regards to what you do. Steve Williams has done some wonderful work in producing these PSOPs and the generic risk assessments and making them specific throughout the book to the pool that they get sent to, that it should be minimal stuff, but it is additional bits like the stuff that we can't account for that we need to be hot on. And what we do, we make sure that we sign the pool off each time account manager changes within that pool. Certain circumstances we will change that, but that has to come from obviously your line manager's approval, and get it in writing as well, just for your own peace of mind on that. So if there's any questions about that, feel free to let me know. But I just want to move on to quad bikes, and the way I'm going to do this is going to show you the safety operating procedure, which is the SOP or the SOP. So I'm just going to quickly whip that up. Just bear with me 2 seconds. No, that's not the right dot. Right, it should come into place now. Okay, so the motor quad safety operating procedure log. I'm just going to flick through self-explanatory. When we go onto camp, make sure we check this, the venue, the season, goes without saying. It'll go on to like a staff signature, so it's just to make sure that we've received all the equipment. Even though this comes on the inventory, this is a double check, and we need to have the staff signature. This can be their squiggle, no problems at all on that. As you can see, it's a full list of what they get. We need to make sure that the quad bikes are stored in a location that is dry and adequate and safe as well. We've had a number of quads over the years that have been stolen, and believe me, even the safest comber hounds that can be seen from the road or public areas have been stolen also. There's been a couple incidents of that happening, so make sure it's in a secure place out the eyes of the general public or anything like that. Details of location on a motor track. A little bit like what we do with the archery, we make sure that we put exactly where the quad track is. The reason being, if someone has to come in, say if, for instance, the camp manager was ill and I need to come in and I didn't know the school, I read the book and I make sure exactly where the quad track needs to go by these details. Now, it can be written, it could be drawn, it could be both. It just needs to make sense and be clear. And then we go in actual safety operating procedure and the content, introduction, equipment, storage, location, everything you need to know about quads, how to start them, how to check for faults, that kind of thing. The basics are in here, and also the risk assessments, the setup of the track, and the session plans. So I just want to quickly look at a couple things. The equipment, we know the equipment, no problems at all. It's a quad bike helmet, gloves, goggles. Okay, and then the first aid kits and cones. I just want to quickly take you to the setup of the track. Okay, so this is the track. Blue cones are the outer oval, and the inner oval is the yellow. And then we've got a 5 meter exclusion zone. So all the children that are not taking part in the session are past this line. And this is where the second instructor stands, or the camp manager, because the camp manager must run this with the instructor. Camp manager or the instructor will entertain the children, do like a sideline activity. If it's a nice day, you can do anything there. Obviously, it's a little bit windy and stuff like that. You can have bits of paper flying around everywhere, so you need to be mindful of that. 5 meters away, 2 children on the track, and essentially what it is, if I get my little doobie what's it. If you have a quad bike there, and as you can see, it's kind of like a velodrome. So that quad bike goes that way, that quad bike goes that way, and never the two shall meet, as they say. The quad bikes must go in the same direction, but on a staggered start, like you would get in cycling at the velodrome. There's no overtaking, there's no bumping, there's no racing. And it's just going around in circles. The first lap is very tentative and very guidey for the child. And then after that first one, when we know they're nice and confident, they'll crack on and go around the circle, the oval, shall I say, in that manner for a couple of laps, and then we get everyone through. It's really important that we've got the sideline activity. It's very engaging, cheer them on, do all that kind of thing. Just get rid of my little... Get back to my cursor. Cool. Just want to quickly go into the daily check. So basically what we need to do is make sure that this is being filled out. The reason being is if we do the daily checks, it's far less likely for the quad bikes to stop working and just be an absolute nuisance, because they are petrol powered, they're a small combustion engine in them, and they're very temperamental if we're not doing these daily checks, hence why we've got a daily check form. So we do the day, each day it needs to be done, tyres, irrespective if there's a session on or not, just keeps it nice. We make sure it's all these things. Check the tyres, just have a little look at them, see if they're pumped up. Check the brakes, just push it forward, put the brakes on. Bodywork, any obvious bodywork malfunctions or kind of like defects. Throttle cutoff is off. Give it a start, just make sure it ticks over, turn it back off, make sure the helmets are in good nick, the gloves are there, and the goggles. First aid kit is fully stocked. If you've got a quad track, which in Easter no one has, and I think for the summer no one has either, we make sure the quad track's in good nick as well, and then obviously any comments for the future there, and then name of the person and signed on that. And I just want to go back to what the fuel cutoff is all about. So as we can see, there's this little, let me get my little cursor again. Here, there is a little arm, and the arm is quite deceiving. The arm looks like it should be pointing down, but actually the arm needs to be pointing up. It's quite kind of counterintuitive. It needs to be pointing up, and that is on. And when it's off, it means it's on the horizontal. So the arm is up, pointing to the sky, and then off is horizontal. If it goes all the way around, it turns it into the reserve tank, and it's basically just like leaving it on. And what happens if you leave it on or put it onto the reserve tank? Fuel drips through to the carburetor, saturates it, and then we'll have to drain the carburetor and make sure it dries out before we can start it again. Let's go to the risk assessments. Let me. And these risk assessments have been written again by Steve Williams, with COSH in mind, with the safety access security, and also all the different bits and pieces that needs with like the fire, first aid. So there's lots and lots of stuff. And like I said, I'm going to send you this copy so you can have a read through it. And then if you've got any questions, email myself, your divisional manager, Nathan, and you can answer the questions, no problems at all. But it's a normal risk assessment for the activity of quad bikes in any organisation that you would ever go to. And it goes through obviously the low level stuff like grazes, bumps and scrapes, all the way up to turnover, breaks, dislocations, that kind of thing, crush injuries. It talks about supervision, it talks about instructor deployment, and then obviously it asks you to put venue specific risks. Now, the one I can think of off the top of my head is, we don't operate at this particular school, but they had a track that went from hard to soft, so it went onto grass, same level, no problems at all. But that's the kind of risk that we need to do. We make sure that we're not doing a turn on the undulating ground, the uneven, it's not uneven, what's the word? Multi-terrain ground. We make sure it's a straight, then they turn on the solid ground, or they turn on just the soft ground. So that's one that could be in there. Another one, it could be bypass, it could be it's near a public footpath, it could be near a tree, even if bushes and stuff are well past the exclusion zone, you might want to put that in case an animal runs on. And you just think about it. What would you do? What it needs to look like? The kind of places. And once you get going back to these different schools and checking them, and you kind of get into a rhythm in regards to what it needs to see in these risk assessments, how it needs to look, and the kind of dangers that can come with it. And then you'll be really good at just coming up with those control measures. And one season, a control measure might fit that hazard, but then the next it wouldn't fit that same hazard. It needs to keep on developing, evolving, especially when we're talking about wet weather, we're talking about hard ground, very, very different methods of operation on those two surfaces. And then wheeled additions, this could be due to anything. This could be due to an accident on another camp and it gets put through, and you need to obviously put a date of addition. Or it could be something that's happened on your camp, or it's absolutely hammered it down with rain. The beast from the east has come back for the 7th time, something like that. We need to make sure we're putting it, updating it, and this is where we update the risk assessments. And every single risk assessment book, or operating procedure, or even a PSOP has an option for this, so we can update it as and when we need to. And like I said, ask away questions wise when I send it over to you. I'm going to send a nice email to you now after this session, just to go through it all. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to pop us back onto my my notes there. So the next one is the expense form, driving for work, what it needs to be done, and I'm going to look for Nathan a bit of guidance in regard to when to put the expense. Let me go through the expense form with you, and then I'll hand over to Nathan with when he wants to see him, what do we do, how did it happen, all of that jazz. So I'm just going to bring an expense form up. So this is our travel and expenses claim on it. So you can have, you've got private car mileage, company fuel mileage. The reason the company fuel mileage is in there is because if you're going on a long journey in a van, we used to have a fuel card that can only be used in a BP garage, and there was a particular, this happened to Steve Wright and myself driving to Truro. There's very limited BP garages, so we had to put like £20 in, say, in a Shell garage. Now we've got these new All-Star cards that we can use in any particular petrol station. So historically it stayed in there, but we never use that section. It's only the private car mileage. So you need to put your registration in there. So what I'm going to do is just put my car registration to give you an example, and then obviously mileage rate. Nathan will talk about the mileage rate and everything like that a little bit in a bit, but this is where the mileage rate in there. So say, for instance, for argument's sake, it's not 10p a mile, but 10p a mile per mile. So it's ppm, and then your mileage. We don't need to fill in the net or VAT. We just put the total in there because obviously we pay all our VAT, and we're not a VAT registered company in that respect. Fuel for vehicles. So if you do need to purchase any fuel for, say, the quad bikes on camp, and you need to put a fiver in a jerry can, this is where you'll put it. You'll put, say, like the Westgate quad fuel, and then the date, which we'll put the 21st in there. And we know when that gets sent to finance, then exactly what that is. And then the finance team can actually use the receipt. Obviously, we keep all our receipts to put it on there, and then we put the return there. Parking toll, public transport, accommodation. You shouldn't need to use all the accommodation part, because this should have been all done for you. But if in event of something, never say never. That's where you put it. Telephone. That's if we don't use them anymore, but we used to have pay as you go, but we keep it in there just because you never say never. Substances. So this is obviously your food. This is your stuff like that. So you'll get an allowance if you stay over. Your division manager Nathan will tell you exactly what you're allowed to have in regard to budgets on that. But it's all that. And I mean, if you come to fill it out and you need a little bit of guidance, just give you a DM a call, and they know this inside out, so they can give you a whistle stop tour. I've also attached a blank one of this to the email that I'm going to send you. So it'll be all that. I'd say always print your name in here electronically. Get a couple printing out because you can do it, and then date in there, and then you just print it off, sign it, making sure that this is all filled out. This section here, so we're putting the date of the travel, the purpose of the journey. So say, for instance, head office to Brighton. Okay, and I can do camp SQS/SQY, and then we know exactly what that journey is, because you imagine how many journeys over the season there are, and it comes onto Nathan's desk. I've seen him with a pile of it, and it's just really nice for him just to go, yeah, I know that, and cross-reference it where you've been, and checking it if you exactly, just a little bit of information on that. Start mileage, finish mileage. And then miles traveled on that, and you just fill it up. And if you need to make it bigger, say you've done like loads and loads of journeys, obviously you just put more in, because you get sent this in Word document, and you can add as many. If it's 50 pages long, you've done a lot of mileage. That's going to be quite a good expense claim form, but make sure it doesn't get to 50 lines. And that's the expense claim form. So I'm going to quickly pop Nathan on the line, so just bear with me.
Excellent. Hopefully you can all hear me. Excellent stuff. So in terms of the expenses form, Wes has done a great job of explaining all of the basics with it. The only sort of key changes from previous years is, as you probably know, during summer, you guys will be having minivans, which you'll be driving. And we're going to take a lot of the pressure away in terms of expenses over, the course of the summer. So you'll be given a fuel card, and that fuel card will go in line with the van. And basically, the way that will work is you won't have to pay for the fuel yourself. You will still have to log where you go, and also the miles that are clocked up on your actual vehicle as well. And that will be done in line with end of week checks. So what will happen is you'll take a picture of your mileage reader and then send that into our admin team, and they will check that against your expenses, and then that will help obviously get approved in a nice timely manner. The big key thing here really is to get it done on a weekly basis. Instead of it sort of racking up for a whole month, we want this to be done weekly, so you can get any sort of money you need back straight away. Obviously, from a fuel card point of view, that's totally fine, but there may be some expenses. And it could be anything from, a camp is missing something. It could be fuel for the quads as a good example. And it could be, you've had a camp who's got 188 or they've got outstanding on Ofsted, and we said, get that camp some treats. and we will pay for that. Now, anything that you feel needs to be paid for the company, so something that will be expensed, you need to speak to your divisional managers first. If you can't get a hold of them, you can speak to me, but I'd like you to go to your divisional managers first and foremost, because they will give you that first approval and ask me if they have sort of any doubts themselves. Okay. Only other bits to sort of bear in mind is if you have to stay overnight anywhere, for example, if you have an Ofsted inspection or for whatever reason you're asked to stay overnight, you have a £10 allowance. So that's £10, no more. If you get something that's less, doesn't mean you still get £10. You need to have a receipt to prove that, otherwise you will not get that expense paid for. Ideally, you want a VAT receipt. I'm very aware some restaurants are sort of quite challenged by this, but if you're able to get it, it makes it a lot easier for our finance team to make sure we are in line with inline revenue expectations for a company of our size. Okay. No expenses will be paid unless your divisional manager and myself, and depending on how much it is, sometimes our managing director signs off. So please don't leave it to the last minute. Make sure you've got enough time. Where that not all of you have access to a computer, so feel free to have loads of printed versions of this. Write it down on a piece of paper, take a picture and send it into your divisional manager, and then they will send it on to me for approval, and I'll be able to print it my end here. So those are the key bits really. We're only going to have the minivans during the summer. So that means that in the other seasons, for example, Easter, next week, you'll be driving your own vehicles. Now, to cover this, the mileage rate that regional managers will be working towards will be 30p a mile. The reason it's that is because it allows for a little bit extra for any sort of wear and tear on your vehicle, sort of driving around to all of our amazing cabs. So it's 30p a mile. So make sure you put that equation in. So that's very much expenses in a nutshell. When it comes to the summertime, you will receive an email detailing the expectations of when you are operating with a van, what's expected of you in terms of keeping it clean. There will be times, for example, if you have your van for the whole of the summer or a number of weeks, where you're asked to go and put it through a car wash. Again, that will be expensive. The reason for that is just to make sure your vehicles are presentable, bearing in mind level of the schools that we work at. We want to make sure that we're representing the brand in the right way. Okay. Obviously, you need to keep your vehicles nice and clean. You need to keep them presentable. You need to keep them safe as well. If you have any sort of maintenance issues with your vehicles, again, you'll be given a specific instruction as to what to do in regards to that. That will be done very much centrally, and we'll give you sort of top tips and any sort of numbers that you do need to call at any point in regards to that. Nearer the time, we'll let you know the logistics of how you'll get your vehicle, whether it is you're near to Oxford, you can come and collect it from here, or if you're a little bit further away, we will let you know how that's going to work. It could be a mixture of things, potentially meeting at a train station, where you can get the train there and collect your van from there, or alternatively, it may be waiting for you at a local camp. But again, nearer the time, your divisional manager will let you know exactly what the score is in regards to that. I know there's a couple of you on now, Erin and Peter. So if you have any questions in regards to this, because I believe both of you are working during Easter, please let me know in regards to expenses, because I know you may have used them previously as camp managers, but this will be your first time using them as a regional manager. Any questions at all? You can type or text or talk. Nope, all good. Excellent. I'm going to hand back over to Wes. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Right, guys, you're back with me for a little bit more now. So thank you, Nathan. But Nathan will be here. He's not gone out of the building. Nathan's here. So if you do have any questions, just chuck them in the comments box, and Nathan can see them while I'm talking anyway, so he can answer while I'm talking. So. Yeah, so basically, just to add to that, just a little thing. This is not a company thing. This is a thing for yourself. It's what basically Her Majesty Revenue and Customs do for you at the end of the year. Basically, it's a tax relief form for employment, so it's expenses and stuff. It's just something that might work. I fill it in every year just to see if there's any bits and pieces that I can claim back off my tax. It's a P. Oh, you can't see it. So sorry, guys. Just bear with me. Technical. Cool, excellent. So you can see this is a P87. I'm going to put this in an email. Also, the link to this. This is a printable copy, but you can also do it online through the gateway. If you've got a gateway pass. If you haven't, it's really easy to log in and just use your national insurance number. But basically, once you've done your employment with us, you can just pop this in. your employment reference, PYE number, national insurance, and then it's just fill it out as it is. Vehicle expenses used for your own vehicle for work. Obviously, like Nathan said, if you use your own vehicle, it's 30 pence a mile, and you can claim up to 15 pence additionally on that through the government off your tax in regards to a tax relief. So it goes through all that. Their hotels and meals expenses. Obviously, Nathan said you have £10. That is actually very generous. A lot of companies don't do that, so it's tax free up to £10. So if you do spend more, you can put it in here, and there might be something to come off your tax. But this is where you can do it, and the government gives you a little bit of tax aid on that. It's not like when you get your wages, it says, "Oh, we're going to give you a little bit, we're going to tax you less." Basically, it's a rebate off the back of this. So I thought this is quite interesting. It's quite helpful for some people that have done it. And then just a little personal note, you can do it up to 3 years worth. So if you've done it in the last couple, done some similar stuff like this in the last couple of years, like drive for work or using hotels or anything like that, you can fill out up to 3 of these from it. So it's financial years ending for this year. So say for instance we're in gone past it, we're in April. You can do it for 2017, 2018, 2016, 2017, and obviously 2015, 16 for those financial years. So it's quite a good one to keep track of. And like I said, I'll put a copy for you to have a little look in and go through it all. Any questions about the P87? It's not a work thing, like I said. This is just more of a personal thing to tell you from me. You can give me a call, and I'll help you how to fill this in. It's not a work thing, like I said. It's just something to help you with. But basically what it is, so that's essentially everything that I wanted to cover this evening. And there's a few documents I want to give you, and there's an Archer tag. I wanted to go into Archer tag, but I felt the best thing to do is send you the videos that we use, and then if there's any questions off the back of that, because these videos are really exciting, and every time I watch them, I've watched them a few times, it's great to watch, and along with all the collateral that I'm going to send you to read and go through, just so you're 100% going forward. So now is really like a bit of a Q&A session, and I mean, if there's any questions, I'm going to unmute you all, so we can hear you. And if there's any questions, please type in the chat box. If not, I bid you farewell. Oh, here we go. We got our first question in, guys. Sorry, I was stuck in traffic. How can we access recording of this to listen to the whole thing? Good question, Aaron. I am going to publish this. So basically what happens, I've been recording this all through. As soon as we end this chat, it generates, and then I'm going to put it on YouTube and then just send it all out to you in the email with the link for everyone to listen to. Does that answer your question, Aaron? Fab, thank you. No worries. Peter, do you have any questions at all, pal? Oh, we got Peter. No, very good question. No, this is for employment. Expenses for employment is a totally different form for that. This is the government allow us, just because they know companies cannot. It's not companies can. Obviously, for mileage rates, obviously they know also that when you're out and about, the £10 or the £15 or whatever the company give for their daily food isn't quite enough, so they allow this because they're quite nice like that for you to claim a little bit back on your tax. And obviously the other one as well, which is if you buy trainers, keep your receipt, because you can also claim some of that back as well, which is a little bit cheeky. But hey, every little helps, as Tesco say. This is not endorsed by Tesco's, by the way. Any other questions? Cool, excellent, guys. Well, I'm going to send this out to everyone, and like I said, you can re-watch it if you want to listen to my dulcet tones for another time. It's completely up to you, but it'll complete access for you to have a little look at this, and like, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. But thank you very much. Any closing statements, Nathan? No, that's a negative. Like I said, Kirsty, anything?
No.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining us. I'm switch this. It'll be about 15 minutes before I send out the email, just because I have to render this, and then you'll get a chance to look at it again and with all the bumps that I've told you about. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.